Everybody loves a good running back one, but not everyone has the 101, the 102, the 103 pick. They can't always grab CMC, Bijan, Brees Hall. Not everybody can get these top guys. So what you want to do is try to find value later on in draft. Today, I want to talk about the cheapest RB1s in fantasy football. Let's go. Alright, so to meet this criteria, I'm talking about running backs from the 5th round and on. You know, we all know that the Derrick Henrys of the world, Saquon Barkley's, Christian McCaffrey's, Bijan Robinson, we all know about those guys. Those guys that's going to anchor your fantasy football team. But again, you need to find value later on in drafts, and these are my cheapest RB1s. So pay attention. Number 1, let's talk about Joe Mixon. For starters, he's a starting running back and a projected top 5 offense. He goes around the Aaron Jones, Rashad White tier. I'd much rather have the Houston offense over the Bake Show or a rookie quarterback and or Sam Darnold. No offense. And you should too. Joe Mixon is going off the board as the RB15 in the 5th round. You can have him as your RB2 or even as your RB3. And that's an easy buy to me. Drafting Joe Mixon as the RB15 is an easy buy. Let's look at it. The RB15 last year had about 200 attempts, a little over 930 yards, and 7 touchdowns. 40 catches, a little over 200 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Let's look at Joe Mixon's career averages. He averages about 224 attempts, about 896 yards rushing, and 7 touchdowns. 40 receptions, 300 yards, and a little under 2 touchdowns. So he's hitting right on the mark of an average RB15. Now these stats might shock you. Last year, as far as red zone attempts, Joe Mixon was among the league leaders. He had 56 red zone attempts. That was top 3 in the NFL. He had 38 attempts inside the 10. That was first in the NFL. And had 18 attempts within the 5-yard line. That was top 3 in the NFL. Houston will use that skill set. They will use him as the goal line back. I promise you that. Next, I want to talk about Alvin Kamara from the New Orleans Saints. Right now, he's being drafted as the RB17, and he goes at the end of the 5th round, early 6th round on average. Same as Mixon. At the end of the 5th round, you're choosing between Aaron Jones, Rashad White, and out of those 3 satellite backs, give me the one with the upside to be the goal line back and catch about 85 balls. Now keep in mind, he only played 13 games. Last year, he had about 86 targets, and that was 2nd on the team in only 13 games. Derek Carr has been top 7 as far as quarterbacks in the NFL the last 2 years on check down percentages. He's going to check the ball down. He's going to dink and dunk his way down the field. And that's something we love for fantasy football. Now, last year in the 13 games, he averaged about 13 attempts rushing and about 6 targets. So he had roughly between 19 and 20 attempts on average. Now, obviously, he's not the long-term solution. I understand they got Kendrick Miller. You want to see what he has. They still have Jamal Williams, even though I do think he's cooked. I think he had one good year in Detroit, and people think he's going to do that year in and year out. Alvin Kamara is the lead back on this team, and again, we've seen what he could produce in only minimal games. Just think if he had a full season to play. And like I said, I know people are saying they still have Jamal Williams, they still have Kendrick Miller. Well, guess what? Alvin Kamara, for his career, only averages about 187 attempts on the ground. He doesn't need to have workhorse volume to be a workhorse running back and to have workhorse efficiency. He's one of my favorite RB1s in fantasy football this year. If you want to go hero RB, or if you want to go wide receiver heavy in the first few rounds, you can draft Alvin Kamara confidently as your RB1. Because he finished as the RB11, he finished as an RB1 in only 13 games last year. What do you think he's going to do with a full schedule? Why is he being drafted as the RB17? I have no idea. Next, I want to talk about David Montgomery. He's not the Detroit Lions running back most people want, but for me, I'm taking the value. He's the RB20 right now and being drafted in the 6th round. The other Detroit Lions running back is being drafted in the 1st round. Not everyone can get Jamar Gibbs, but everyone can get David Montgomery. Aside from David Montgomery, you got guys like DeAndre Swift, James Conner, and Ramondre Stevenson in the 6th round. I would much rather have the Detroit offense and D-Mon over those guys. In only 14 games, he had almost 220 attempts, a little over 1,000 yards rushing, and 13 touchdowns. To go along with almost 20 catches, a little over 100 yards, and 0 touchdowns through the air. Yes, Jahmyr Gibbs will get an uptick in volume, but D-Mon is still going to return value as an RB20. And in that same concept, how much more volume can Jahmyr Gibbs even get? He had over 180 attempts last year, a little under 1,000 yards rushing, and 10 touchdowns. To go along with 71 targets, a little over 50 receptions, 300 yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air. Lions finished as a top 3 scoring offense in the NFL, and you can only see the offense getting better. I'm not saying they're going to be a top-rated offense in the NFL, but they're going to continue to be a top 5 offense because they have the weapons to do so. Again, you might not be able to get Gibbs in the 1st round, understandably so, but you can easily get D-Mon in the 6th round. And if Jahmyr Gibbs' worst case scenario goes down, D-Mon will be a top 5 running back. So he's not only a player you can play with standalone value, but one of the strongest handcuffs in fantasy football. Let's talk about James Conner. He's going off the board right now as a running back 22, and he goes between the 6th and 7th round, depending on your league settings. He played 13 games last year, had a little over 1,000 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns, with about 200 attempts. He sprinkled in about 30 catches, 160 yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air. Now, that was only in 13 games, and obviously, Kyler only played 8 of those games, so we didn't see the Cardinal offense at full strength. And he still had somewhat a decent year. The offense should be a lot better with Kyler at full strength, not only playing a full 17 games, but coming off the injury. He should be fully healthy. You got James Conner coming back. You got a breakout season coming from Trey McBride. You got Marvin Harrison. They added Zay Jones. This offense should be a quiet storm in 2024. Now, yes, he's going to miss games, 100%. 1,000% he's going to miss games. James Conner has never played a full 17 games, but that's okay. Because where you're drafting him at, you don't need him to play a full 17 games. You can add him to the flex. You can play him as a bye week fill-in. I wouldn't mind having him as my RB2 or even my RB3 because I know there's touchdown upside on every single game. There is zero chance that James Conner is not the workhorse as long as he's healthy. I understand they drafted Trey Benson, and he might be the future, but right now, it's James Conner's time. And again, as long as he's healthy, they're going to give him the workhorse role. We've seen it time in and time again. The Cardinals, no matter how bad the offense is, are going to rush the ball. They're not only top 5, but they're one of the best rushing teams in the NFL, and that has to do with Kyler and James Conner. Next, let's talk about Najee Harris. He's coming off the board as the RB23 right now in the 7th round. Najee last year finished as the RB23, and that was in a putrid offense. With Kenny Pickett, there's no way with Russ and or Justin Fields can be worse. He's being drafted around Zach Moss and Jonathan Brooks. Give me the Steelers offense and Najee Harris, which should be a lot better than the Carolina offense, and he should have more stability than Zach Moss. Knock on wood, but he's never missed a game in the NFL, and I'm sure it's going to continue. He's an Iron Man. You can always count on him on a week-to-week basis. No matter if he's getting 15 touches a game or 25, he's going to be out in the field. The new coordinator, Arthur Smith, obviously came from Atlanta, and we see what he did. He doesn't care if it's a top 5 running back in the league or someone who doesn't deserve to even be on the team. He's going to run the ball. Najee Harris is going to get the ball. He's going to get close to 300 touches this year. And finding that in the 7th round isn't easy. They declined his 5th-round option, so some people might say they're not his future. They're not going to use him. They're going to go with Jaylen Warren. Yes and no. Jaylen Warren is going to get some touches, and he is going to get an uptick in volume in his offense. But Najee Harris, they're not scared of him getting 300 touches and wearing him down because they know he's not in their future plans, which is good for fantasy football. And last but not least, I want to talk about Gus Edwards, probably one of my favorite running backs to draft this year. And I'll tell you why. He's being drafted right now as a 39th running back in the 10th round. He's pretty much undrafted. But they signed J.K. Dobbins. I don't care. Look at the salary. J.K. Dobbins is not going to be a factor. He might not even make the team coming off a second ACL tear in as many years. We heard it straight from the horse's mouth, Austin Eckler. They got rid of him. He didn't sign back with the team because they wanted someone that's going to tote the rock 300 times a year. And that's not Austin Eckler. But that can be Gus Edwards. Is he going to get 300 carries? Obviously not. But does he have the ability to go for 250 attempts? Of course. And you're getting that in the 10th round. That's insane to me. I understand the offense did not look great last year, and they lost a ton of their weapons. But what is their identity? They lost Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, Gerald Everett, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa had to take a pay cut. So what is their identity? Rushing the ball and defense. With a top 5 pick, they could have picked any weapons to replace those guys. They chose to go with an offensive lineman. They're going to run the ball. A running back with 200 touch potential in the 10th round, sign me up. And you might think, well, he doesn't have a lot of upside. Look where he's being drafted, around guys like Chase Brown and Blake Corum, who might have upside in Dynasty, but this is redraft. Give me the running back that I know will touch the ball 10 to 15 times at the very least every game with goal line potential. The starting running back, and what should be one of the top offenses in the NFL, according to John Harbaugh. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in and following along with us on this journey to become the #1 fantasy football company in the state of Louisiana.